Hello.
It's recording in progress.
This is our first podcast.
It is. We're two generations, one microphone, zero filters, and let's get into it. I'm Megan. This is my mom,
Marsha.
Marsha. Anyway, we're here speaking about spiritual stuff from a Western perspective because we grew up in fundamentalist Christianity, and frankly, we needed to grow out of it. And we talk about these things on the phone all the time, and we wanted to share it for other women that needed some encouragement that there's other people out there that are having the same questions. Our first episode, we really kind of wanted to talk about the Tao. What is the Tao? And how it came into our lives and what we, have found with it, you know.
Well, and so then with that, me thinking about how whatever caused me to ever want to buy a book, and read it.
Yeah, how'd
And
that happen?
and when I really think about it, of course, Megan and I have talked a lot about, well, or I don't know how to do this. Am
That's
I
weird,
talking
isn't it? That's fine. Me,
to
you,
other people? Am I talking to you?
me.
So, Megan, um, how I kind of gained outside of some of the things that you had talked to me about. And then, of course, now my mind is jumping around. But what really pushed me to go ahead and buy a book is two things. One thing is my yoga instructor that I really have a lot of respect for. And she's very mild and calm and peaceful, and she doesn't push. And then she was talking about that her and her husband were studying a little bit about Taoism. And I thought, if she's studying that, and I don't know why, maybe I might want to be interested in it too. And so then you had, when I came up there to visit one time, you had checked out a book at the library, and I read it, and it just gave me such peace. It's like I looked forward to every night opening that book up and reading, and the chapters are really, really short, but
Yeah.
reading the chapters, and I gained a lot of peace. And I thought there is something about this, so I wanted to investigate a little bit more about Lao, which is the person
They think wrote it, maybe.
that wrote it or spoke it or whatever. And when I was thinking about, he wasn't a religious leader. He wasn't trying to teach some religion out there for people to follow. He just went in nature and observed nature and then talked about it. He observed the ebbs and flows of life, and and connected it with whatever was going on in life at the time. And I think you had just read something a few
Well,
minutes ago.
I remember how I came to the Tao, actually. Um, Before I got that Winnie the Pooh book. That I can't remember what it was, but it was a little Winnie the Pooh book. Yeah, and I left it in the basement for you to read it, and it was like I can't remember the name of it. Um, I don't know, but it's a wonderful book, a great introduction to the Tao. But actually, what happened was my psychologist that I had, I mean, I don't know, she'd have a different story. We pretty much reached the end of the road of our relationship, and she didn't know what to do with me. That was it. She didn't know what to do. I was having existential questions. And she said finally, she was like, maybe, maybe you need to read the Tao. And I was like, oh. So I went to the library and picked up some stuff, including that little Winnie the Pooh book. And I loved it. Because Winnie the Pooh is a little bear that just kind of lives in the flow. He lives in the Tao, and that's what that first chapter is about. But yeah, Lao Tzu. So we don't know if he was a real guy or if he was just like a conglomerate of the idea of this wise old man, because it means old man, who wrote these things. And it was during the time of Confucius, I think, or right around that time. And us being Westerners, we don't really know this history. We didn't learn it. So if somebody knows better, please correct me.
And then
But
also with the way that we were raised.
oh yeah, we couldn't even think about it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, think about that. But anyway, but now we
Right
are.
to the burning place. No, it says it was written around fourth to sixth century BCE. So it's before Common Era is the new standard of saying that. I'm learning.
Not
Help
me
me.
either. Yeah.
And so the Tao De Jing, which I'm having a hard time pronouncing, was written by Lao Tzu. And it was a bunch of different little chapters.
81.
81.
Oh,
So we're going to talk about the first one and what it brought into our lives and how we can live by it because we study many different books, and this is one that we have talked about. Do you want to read that?
I will, but I will. And
Go
but
ahead. What?
one other thing I wanted to mention too is just wanting to have peace and contentment in my life, reducing anxiety, COVID and all that anxious time. And so when I would, and then like therapy, and when I would study about ways to be peaceful and lessen anxiety, it meshed so well with what I was reading in this book about the Tao or the way or the journey. But anyway, that's really just all that Tao means is our journey on the way, our journey from the moment we're born until we die and then maybe beyond, that our journey. And so, anyway, the first chapter of the Tao or Tao that can be trodden is the enduring and unchanging Tao. That's one kind of translation. Oh, sorry. The little chapter, oh, I wrote it down. I can't remember what it just says direct observation. It's just observing what's around you. That's the first chapter. So some people take that to mean what I said, that that the reason why it's so hard to explain what the way is because words are not enough. And so, for example, the name that can be named is not the eternal name. Uh, Words, and I kind of say this, words are not adequate to convey the Tao. It's just living in harmony with whatever surrounds us. And so the peace that I get from it, I experience when I go for walks in nature or when I just walk around the college where I live. And I try to focus on my five senses when I am doing that walk. And I think that's probably what he did.
Like the
And
actual
so,
man. Yeah, he did that.
and there's kind of a connection, and that's why I enjoyed reading this book. And it's not because of trying to change my religion or anything like that, but it is about the spiritual and about that wanting to have that experience and not just rules
Hmm.
and stuff like
Like a
that. But
real world connection, and this is what you can do to enjoy it, but you don't have to.
but you
Very
don't have I don't have to.
different than a rules-based religion.
And trying to have faith and comfort and confidence in, and now the name that can't be named, but like in God or the universe or and it's you can't put words to it. You really can't. If you're what I'm talking about, that is inside of every one of us, and that has ever been and ever will be. Um, and so I find peace in that when I take time to get out in nature and do the walk and just breathe and not even try to put things into words, you know, I don't know, something like that.
Oh, I think that makes sense because, like nature, I assume nature is in the flow in the Tao. I have been calling it the river lately. You- those trees are living it all day. So when we're in it, in the nature with the trees, you know, oh,
What
I
was
need
that?
an alert that I have something.
Oh, okay.
Um, Actually, let me check my, okay, hold on. Today is Monday. We may have to redo this month. We
Mm-hmm.
may have to redo this. Mhm.
Oh,
Or we can just have her, I have to check my thing real quick. I
okay.
think it might
Just
be
real
able
life,
to do it.
real life.
My alert though. January, February. Here we are. No. Um, Lost
All
my,
good.
yeah, I'm all good. I might be able to edit it out.
Well, you were talking about the river that
Yeah,
you
the
think
river.
of.
So like, oh, it's so hard to explain that whenever you grow up in a different type of belief system. When you grow up in a rules-based belief system that we grew up in, where you have to do this or you do not get this, right? That's it. This is a very, very different concept. And we've talked about it a lot. And now for us seems natural, but I have to go back and think what it's like to if this is new to you. Like if it's completely new, the idea that there is some force out there in everything, in the trees, in the rocks, in us, that's is equally valid is so
Mind
crazy.
blowing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's so crazy that that could happen. Or that that is God. That's scary.
And
I
always think that when, if I ever think of trying to explain this to someone else other than you, because a lot of times our vibe is kind of the same, but that God is much bigger than our little ways that we were taught. God is
and
much
yeah,
bigger.
and in everything.
I don't mean bigger like, but is more and is more magnificent, is more loving, is more wants good for us. You know,
And flows right where it needs to. So we don't
well,
have to control it. Like it's going to go. It's going to take the path of least resistance, just like a river. It's going to work out. We're living in a lot of turbulent times right now in our country and can feel really stressed out about our politics here right now, or maybe things going on in our lives, or even just females in the culture we live in
suffering.
sometimes
Yeah,
suffering.
suffering is part of it.
Um, it's really hard to not feel like, the world's completely out of control. And this
Mm-hmm.
is a different thing. This is like, oh, wait, it still is in control. So
Mm-hmm.
even if I exist or don't exist, it's still flowing. Life is still going the way it needs to. Um, it's a very humbling way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. In a way,
It's
but it's
humbling because
also,
then we're not the center of it all.
which, yeah, that's significant to think about.
So, like those first two parts of the Tao, and I know we have different translations, and that makes it a little bit more difficult, but it says like the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao, the name that can be named is not the eternal name, the nameless is the origin of heaven and earth, the named is the mother of 10,000 things. What it just keeps going. It just says you cannot possibly
Explain it.
categorize this
Yeah.
with human words.
Yeah.
You can feel it maybe, like when you're walking in nature.
Mm-hmm. And if I make myself, um, I really, it's a practice of focusing on my senses, like what I'm seeing with my eyes, what I'm hearing with my ears, what I might be smelling, those, what I'm feeling on my skin. And it's a practice, but that is a calming thing. I don't know why I'm even saying this right now. I lost my
No, but
train
it
of
is
thought.
because it's a feeling that you can feel. It's kind of like when I talk about it, well, first of all, it's being very mindful or being very present, which is a tool, but you have to know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel, you know when you're in it and you know when you're not, but you have to learn that. You know when you're in it.
And it's a one of the, yes. And when I know that I'm in it, then I'm trusting.
Yep.
And like with every breath, and I think God is in every breath. And so with every breath, I'm try to remind myself, trust. And with every exhale, then I go relax. Every breath, so sometimes that is my practice when I'm walking around. And it just kind of connects with some of this teaching, from somebody all those many years ago.
And so it's a more peaceful way of living, which is very different, I imagine, than what he was if this was a literal person during the time of Confucius, which kind of has some legalistic parallels to maybe our fundamentalist Christianity, where it's a time of like, you have to do this to attain something. The idea of just being okay with whatever happens doesn't mean just kind of giving up, really is very different than trying to achieve, I don't know what, by rules.
Well, and
And you
finding,
can't mistake anything. You can't make mistakes, right? Is that what that means?
yeah.
Yeah. And that's big. If you can't make a mistake, that means like there's no sin. Then what?
Like, okay, we can know what a lot of people might think of that
I know.
statement.
But yeah, that's what that would be. It'd be there's no sin. There's a natural way of just being in the flow or being like I talk about being in that river all the time because I'm very visual and physical in my mind. I can imagine everything. And so when I'm going down the flow of life, I'm literally flowing like on a raft or something down that river. And other times I am being smacked by sticks and trying to swim upstream. And I'm holding on to sticks while the waves are
Um,
smacking me and it's
you're
ridiculous.
resisting. You're trying to control things,
Yeah.
which we all want when we're afraid. We want to control things. When there's struggles, we want to control. And so does take uh, mental exercise
Mental
and
exercise. Yeah.
and physical to make yourself get up and go walk in the woods or whatever it is, and to try it really is hard. Or even I think about when I'm driving. You know my thing about driving. When I'm driving, I have to I have to practice some of these things then too, just to
Be
in the flow,
present, be in the flow.
be present in the moment. Like we hear people talk about that kind of stuff all the time, but there's a reason why these things resonate with
Okay,
people.
makes sense. And I'm
But
looking right behind me. At my
you're
labyrinth, I can't point. At my labyrinth, that was one of the first things we figured out before we even had a name for it about being in the flow was visiting this labyrinth by my house that I had found by some miracle about 10 years ago. And I was not Catholic. I didn't know about labyrinths in those churches and cathedrals. I had no idea what the deal is with labyrinths. But labyrinths are not mazes. They are a path that's kind of predictable, but not predictable enough that your brain is able to let go of monitoring where your feet are. Like you can't get lost on it, but you get a little confused as you're going. So it helped me be in the flow before I knew what that meant.
I remember coming up there and walking that too.
Yeah, my feet, you have to watch where your feet are going, and it's just enough to silence that part of your brain. I don't know what part of your brain that is. Some executive functioning things going on.
Amygdala.
I don't know, but it silenced it enough for me to be able to kind of just let go of that overthinking and to
Mhm.
hear the other voice that I had not developed attunement to. Now I can hear it all the time, but back then I couldn't because I was constantly going, what do people think? What do people think driving by me on the labyrinth? Do they think I'm being doing some witchcraft thing out here?
Yeah.
No. Like I had all this thought. What am I wearing? Am I walking like a normal human? Are my hands in my pockets? Those are all thoughts I had all the time that kept me from hearing that voice, that inner
Mhm.
voice of the flow that directs you in a more peaceful way where you can go down the river in a nice way without being smacked to death by sticks and rocks and holding on to the mud by your fingernails. So anyway,
That
yeah.
is kind of my way of, I do, I think of a river too. And probably from our conversations together. And I remember one time you telling about, well, it's like kind of like what you're saying now, but that about there would be an obstacle. And so that would be like having a stick jammed into the riverbed or whatever. And so here you're going along in the flow, and then there's either you're going to flow around that obstacle or you're going to smack into it, just
And
like
hang
you're.
on for dear life. Why? I don't know. Yeah. And so like, yeah, that happens almost every day on a small level or a big level, but I think like relationships, those are one of those big things. Relationships that, because we get so hung up on like the outside thoughts about judging relationships and what we need to hold on to or not. Sometimes just holding on to that relationship is like, this stick out in on this stream. I'm thinking of the Nolan River right now, and I'm hanging on to this stick instead of just going, wait a minute. If I let go of this stick, I could flow to maybe some places I don't even know about yet, instead of holding on to that silly stick and just loving the smacking. I don't know what that's about. We're so silly as humans. So part of the Tao, though, is that and this connects to other scriptures and things like beliefs too. I don't by any means think I'm only into the Tao. Um, is that you trust that you're always heading for the better good. So
Yeah.
that flow is not going to continually take you down rapids and waterfalls where you're going to go to your death. You trust that it's for the better good.
And for, yes, for yourself and for everything and everybody.
Yeah,
For
and
the,
I know
I,
you and I used to have the ability to recite Bible verses like super fast, and now it's kind of like going
I,
because we're putting other things in there. But that
can't.
verse, all good things come to them who something about believe. I don't know because I'm putting other verses in there. Am I wrong? Do you know what it is? I'm
Now
right.
I can't. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. I can't regurgitate them as fast as possible, but I do know that Jesus' teachings, he says it a lot about belief. He doesn't say, believe in me and you shall be burned to death and beaten. And, that was in some other books.
Mm.
It's
Well,
not the
they
red
talk about
letters.
the red letters. Yeah, I was getting ready to say that the red letters, and there's a lot of connection
Yeah.
when you. Not, I'm not talking about the red letters necessarily, but there's a lot of if you and we refer to the Bible a lot when we're talking to each other. Right now, I'm just a little anxious, I guess, and I can't think as clearly. But anyway, the, there's a lot of connection with studying with what the general big picture of the Bible and what it's supposed to mean, I
Yeah, and
think.
I
And
understand. I understand the anxiety that comes with that because there's big, strong feelings and big, strong feelings in our past and with family, and huge, strong feelings about what you should study and not study and talk about and not talk about. So that's where that comes from. Um, and that's what we're trying to move past together. And it's a journey.
Mhm.
Oh, I
It is.
could,
I know I wrote down purpose. What is the purpose of doing this? You know, and so the purpose, I want to be sure and say that, but it's not for us to teach other people. It's for us to share our journeys and continue our journey together, talking about it. We're just doing it in this format right now, and for with gratitude and peace and contentment and awareness and heightening our awareness of these things. And I know that at some point we want people to feel comfortable sharing with us and helping us, you
yeah,
know.
that would be nice. And just to know there's other people out there that have similar thoughts. Because when we started this journey, and I'm looking at the time, we have a minute 30 left. When we started this journey, there weren't other people that we knew thinking these things. So it feels very alone. And so I know we've talked about why we want to do this is not, I mean, yeah, the general public or women or whatever, but it's also like the kids, like the next generation. If I'm not here, you're not here, it'd be great if they could log into YouTube and go, wow, thank you. Somebody has a different thought because I don't know where things are headed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we
So we
going to
made it through. I don't know how convoluted that was, but I liked it. I think we were in the flow for a little bit.
so too? I think so too. So we might just read chapter 2 of the Tao next time.
That sounds good.
You have
And
a closing
to,
thought?
yeah, I'm gonna have to reread it and I might go get that Winnie the Pooh book again because I love that book. I forgot about it.
This will be a good one.
Yeah, my closing thought, I'm gonna read it because I forgot it.
And we'll yeah, read it.
And remember, life's a journey, not a checklist. So breathe deep, laugh loud, and trust the ride. Yeah. So
All
I'll
right.
talk to you later, Mom.
Next time.
Bye.